All right, guys, so last night, I'm sure many of you saw, Donald Trump had his town hall with CNN, and I just kind of wanted to talk about what is the current dynamic with Trump possibly going on the Joe Rogan Experience. How would that affect him in terms of his overall likability? Why won't Rogan have him on? Rogan said in the past that, Trump's bad, this, that, he doesn't want to put him on there. I'm going to kind of talk about the dynamic behind it, why I think Rogan's been scared to have Trump on, and if that could change in the future. Now, the first thing to think about is the Republican primaries. What do we think is going to happen? Me personally, I think, Vivek Ramaswamy should probably win the primaries. But let's just assume that Trump wins the primaries. He's winning in the polls right now. I'm sure DeSantis is going to announce at some point, but it is kind of getting a little ridiculous with him. He hasn't announced, maybe it's something to do with him being the governor. He has to wait, but people are kind of like, what's going on with him? It's looking like it's going to be Trump versus DeSantis. Let's say Trump beats DeSantis. If you're Joe Rogan, what do? I think there's a very easy solution because Rogan likes coming off as an independent, even though I think at this point he leans more on the right on a lot of these issues, and it's really not his fault. The left has gotten so ridiculous and so crazy, and if you don't believe me, go listen to Biden talk about gay marriage in 2006 versus what he's saying now. They've just gotten so far left and so crazy. They're so obsessed with not alienating anyone, especially minority people. It is significantly hurting their overall message and points. They've gone completely insane, and I think Rogan's just someone in the middle saying this is ridiculous. That's why he's kind of gone a little bit more on the right, but he still likes to say he's an independent, and I'm sure he has liberal points, but if I'm Rogan, this is what I do. Let's say it's Biden versus Trump in a rematch, which, by the way, I don't want either Biden or Trump, and I think a lot of younger people don't want either of them either. But, with Biden, it's looking like they're going to go with him. I'll believe it when I see it, but it is looking like it. Let's say it's Biden-Trump. If I'm Rogan in 2024, in the summer, I would come out and I would say, I'm going to offer both Biden and Trump a chance to come on my podcast, totally public. This is a public offer, take it or leave it. Biden obviously will decline. He can't string two sentences together without spazzing out and forgetting what he said in the first sentence. Trump, I guarantee you, will accept to go on Rogan's podcast, and I think it would be a major win for Trump, and I think Rogan knows that. So, when it comes to Rogan not having Trump on, I'm sure if you're Trump and you have any type of political smarts or knowledge, going on Rogan's podcast is an extremely, good thing to do. It's going to make you more likable. It's going to make you more human. Anytime you have the chance to have a long form 2 or 3 hour conversation, and you're someone of Trump's stature, it kind of brings you down to the citizens level, and the people realize, oh, he's really just human, and it really humanizes you. I think it's one of the main reasons that Zuckerberg's advisors tell him to go on the podcast, even though it's kind of funny to hear Zuckerberg go on the podcast. He sounds like a robot, but that is kind of the reason they do it. All these mega rich people, you do this long form conversation when you really get deep, and it comes off as really genuine rather than, like what we saw last night with the CNN town hall. The Republicans are going to love what Trump says. The Democrats are going to hate what Trump says. You're really not gaining any voters by doing that. You're going to make your base, a little bit more strong. Maybe it'll help Trump in the primaries, but that's really not going to get you independent voters when it's just Republican, Democrat, catfighting, type style of argument. If you have a long form debate and Trump comes off really good, and that's kind of the reason why I think Rogan's been hesitant to do it. Rogan knows Trump is probably going to come off really good because it's going to make him more human and more genuine. It's going to swing some of the independent people. And Rogan doesn't want to be blamed for being one of the reasons that Trump gets elected or something like that. I think that's Rogan's opinion. That's why he doesn't want to have him on. Now, I know he said, Trump is whatever. I think he criticized him and said that he doesn't like his politics or something like that. But at this point, even Rogan should understand where the United States is headed is simply not sustainable. Our inflation is completely out of control. The immigration is completely out of control. The crime in major cities is completely out of control. Even liberals understand it. That's why they're fleeing California. The two biggest states when it came to, people leaving, California and New York, and it's because of the major city crime. And they admit it, but then they still vote for the same stuff after they leave. It's ridiculous. Either way, guys, the whole dynamic with Trump going on Joe Rogan, I think it could happen. The other thing that could happen, well, there's actually two other things that could happen. If Trump wins the primary, I could see Rogan saying, I'm staying out of it. I'm not dealing with it. I'm too old. I'm worth $500 million or whatever. There's no reason for me to have Trump on and really put myself in the center of the political debate right now when I could just wait for 2028. Or Trump could lose to DeSantis or Ramaswamy, and then it would be very easy for Rogan to have him on. But, if Trump accepts the loss and says, all right, whatever, you beat me in the primary, let's be honest, guys, if DeSantis beats Trump, Trump is going to say, all the Republicans gained up on me, because the only way DeSantis beats Trump is if all of the Republicans drop out, like Nikki Haley, if Pence wants to run, other ones like that. They're going to drop out pretty much immediately, probably right after Super Tuesday, and then all support DeSantis, and it's going to be kind of like Trump's going to say, oh, it's collusion against me. All the Republican establishment is against me. It's the same thing that happened with Biden when Bernie Sanders was gaining steam, and then you've got all the Democratic candidates back in 2020 dropping out at basically the same time, endorsing Biden because they were all siphoning votes off of Biden. It's the exact same dynamic that what happened to DeSantis. If you're a Nikki Haley voter, there's a much higher chance if Nikki Haley is out of the race, you would vote for DeSantis over Trump. All of that voter block, well, I shouldn't say all of it, a lot of it would go to DeSantis, and that's theoretically how DeSantis beats Trump in a primary situation, but it does seem like there's a lot going against DeSantis right now. He's going to have to announce, he's going to have to get back on the offensive if he wants to win the Republican nomination. I still think DeSantis can win just because, and it's funny, it's like you go back to the 2022 midterms, every one of Trump's candidates outside of like J.D. Vance got crushed. I mean, you even had, Trump endorse Dr. Oz losing to someone that's brain dead. And right after that, the entire narrative is DeSantis is the guy. Republicans were sick of losing. A poll came out that DeSantis was up by 15 points in Texas for the primaries over Trump. And I mean, what's really changed since then? Nothing. Nothing's changed. It's like the problem Trump has, and all of this is really hard to analyze because we just don't know. Like, this is where I can sympathize with Trump on. The problem is you have all these liberal people who, for 4 straight years, said Donald Trump is worse than Hitler. We need to do whatever means necessary to get him out of the White House. They had a 2-year conspiracy theory, complete Russian hoax that Russia somehow hacked our election to get Trump elected because they couldn't accept the fact that Clinton lost. And then they come out after the election, after a record number of mail-in ballots, which I understand you can say is due to the pandemic, but still, there are countries that ban mail-in voting because rampant voter fraud is normally involved with mail-in voting. That is a fact with other countries. And then you get these Democrats who for 4 years said, Trump is Hitler, whatever means necessary, let's impeach him even if it's not logical. And then they say after the election, how dare you accuse us of voter fraud? That's an attack on our democracy. It's like, you can't have your cake and eat it too. If you're going to say we got to do whatever it takes to get Trump out, and then there's just this record number of voting for a dude who's 80 years old, who stumbles after every word he says, Joe Biden, people are going to look at that kind of funny. Let's be honest. And then they say, how dare he? So it's just like, I can sympathize with Trump, but I still do. I'm very concerned with Trump. His rhetoric is the exact same. You kind of have to lean into and defend the January 6th thing, but there has to be at least a strategy if you are Trump to reach out to independent voters. If I was Trump at the town hall last night, I would have said, look, it's a lot of things. There was some certain things I would have done different. I live, I learn, I grow. And I think right now we need to focus on how bad the economy is currently, how bad the inflation is, how bad crime is. Go look at the illegal immigrant border crossings. It's up over double or right around double since I left in 2020. That's what we need to be focusing on. Obviously, I've done some things, that I will learn from. But there's just nothing with Trump that he says that. It's always dig in. I'm always right. You're always wrong. And in some sense, it just alienates people, and it's hard to win independence when you think like that and when you talk like that. It's a very aggressive style. But again, I can sympathize with Trump when these Democrats, they're complete hypocrites. It's ridiculous. They say, they had a 2-year fake investigation against Trump and found nothing and wasted millions of dollars and so much time. And then they say, how dare you accuse us of voter fraud? You were the people that said Trump needs to be removed any means necessary, and then we get a record number of votes. Come on. It doesn't take a data genius nuclear engineer to add this up. It's a little ridiculous. I'm not saying anything happened with the election, but I am saying a lot of this stuff, it takes time for it to come out. It's just like the whole pandemic thing when everyone was like, oh my God, if you don't wear a mask, you're endangering people and stuff like that, and everything has come out. And it just does not matter. And again, I was someone that wore the masks, whatever. The only reason I didn't like the masks is because it dehumanizes you. And it does. It makes us like robots, things like that. We can't see human emotion when we're wearing the masks. But overall, guys, the idea of Trump going on Rogan, it is a positive for him. I'm sure he wants to do it. Trump was on the kiddie show, Nelk, which is like, I'm guessing he's trying to reach younger voters by doing that. He went on that podcast. So, there's no doubt that, if you're smart, you 100% accept. And if you're Rogan and you want to appear independent, it's a very easy thing. All you do, if it is Trump versus Biden, you come out in the summer in 2024, 3 months before the election, and you say, listen, we can either do a debate where I'm the moderator, or I can just talk to each one of these guys for 2 or 3 hours. It's an open invitation for both Biden and Trump, or whoever the Democratic nominee is and Trump, to come on the podcast and talk about your platform and what you're going to do and have some transparency, because we never get to hear these politicians talk for a long period of time. It's always, again, last night's a great example. It's the CNN, the woman who obviously is trying to have gotcha moments against Trump, and Trump is fighting back and trying to have these one-liners, and just nothing gets accomplished, right? So let's actually have some long-form, real debate and talk about it and really get to know who the people are. Biden is just not capable of it. He's too old. His brain doesn't work fast enough to have a 30-minute conversation, let alone a 3-hour one. And that's not me making fun of Biden. I'm just analyzing where he is and how bad his cognitive decline has gotten. If he wants to prove me wrong, go ahead. Go on Joe Rogan for 3 hours. I don't think he can do it. I think Trump can. And look, maybe Rogan is saying, I don't want to be involved with this. The Democrats are going to accuse me of aiding Trump to a victory. If he goes on there, if he has some good clips, some good moments. I'm not saying Rogan's podcast is going to flip the election, but I do think it will probably make Trump more likable, just because long-form conversation with people that are very famous, it makes the people seem more organic. Guys, you cannot deny that. So that is the whole situation with Trump possibly going on Joe Rogan. Again, if Trump somehow loses the primaries and doesn't run as a third party, which, to be honest, I think with how old Trump is, Trump would just derail the Republican Party. If DeSantis wins, Trump is going to run as an independent. That would be my prediction, honestly. I can't see Trump, based on how DeSantis would win with everyone dropping out and supporting DeSantis, the entire Republican establishment, Trump would immediately say, oh, that's collusion, I'm going to run anyways, you can't stop me, which would split the vote. 30% of the base would vote for Trump, DeSantis would get stomped by whatever Democrat, and that would kind of really just destroy the Republicans in 2024, and I think that's what would happen. But if Trump somehow loses to DeSantis or Ramaswamy, and then just says, all right, whatever, I'll support them, then it's a lot easier for Rogan to have Trump on, because it's not like Rogan can influence anything. There's no type of accountability that he really needs. If you're debating or interviewing someone who's running for president, he did do it with Bernie Sanders, and that made Bernie a lot more likable. It was a really good interview for Sanders. It doesn't surprise me. But even something like that, I believe, was only an hour and a half, and Bernie Sanders like, I have to leave. These politicians have to realize, no. You stay there. If I was a politician, I would go on Rogan for 5 hours, dude. Like, this whole thing, I have better things to do. What, are you going to go to another rally with 20 people there? Like the amount of just like viral clips you can get from that and overall people watching it is so ridiculous. Like, there is not a rally in the world that is, or maybe there is if you've got like a really big, well, honestly, no, there's not. Like, do independent voters really watch Trump rallies? Or like, I mean, like that will get you so many independent eyeballs, I feel like. So that's why I think it would be good for Trump. Again, I don't know. First, Rogan needs to have on Vivek Ramaswamy. Would he have on someone like DeSantis? I don't know. It kind of is similar to Trump. I think he can have on Ramaswamy without kind of getting too political into it, just because Ramaswamy is such an unknown right now. I know a lot of people probably watching this know who he is, but you have to understand the general public. If you polled 100 people, I mean, maybe 10 people would know who he is. I don't know. But either way, that's kind of the dynamic I see with Trump and possibly going on Joe Rogan. It just comes down to, does Rogan really want to get into this? Because, if you interview Trump, it is opening yourself up for a lot of criticism, and that is a ton of pressure to put on yourself. If you're Rogan and you've already made $500 million or whatever it is it necessarily worth it? I don't know. If I was Rogan, I would say YOLO, you only live once. I could give a shit what Democrats think. If I'm enabling someone or platforming someone, go fuck yourself. I don't care. But, I'm not Rogan. I don't have kids. I'm not worth $500 million. It's his call. It's whatever. Either way, guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you follow me on Twitter. Link to that's always in the description. I'm, of course, the Depressed Ginger. Thank you for watching.